This week, new planning legislation was passed in state parliament, and the big headline was how it would allow venues built for the 2032 Olympics and Paralympics to be exempt from major planning rules, okay? But there was a second part to the bill, introducing new approval requirements for wind and solar farms. Implications for Central Queensland. So the LNP member for Morani, Glen, he explained to the ABC's Katrina Bevan how the new legislation will work when it comes to proposed renewable energy projects in our neck of the woods and the rest of the state.
So this means now that these developers actually have to go through the process, like the mining industry do. And don't forget here, when it comes to a coal mine, for an example, it can take up to 10 to 12 years for that to get up. And I mean, with these developers, when it comes to wind and solar projects, and with the previous government, they could start doing things and do whatever they want within 6 to 12 months. This is so important for these communities because, like the coal mines with your 10 to 12 years, I mean, it's called planning, processing, working out how the communities can benefit. It's how councils can deal with it. It's how the neighbouring properties can deal with it.
But what does that actually mean in terms of processes? Is it still all sit with the council for approval, or now is the state government heavily involved with this impact assessable criteria?
So it all comes back to the state government, and it's with these large-scale projects such as solar now, it's processed through the state government, which is a good thing, I believe. Council have a lot on their plate as it is, and you start putting processing these solar farms in and around at large scale as they are. It's a pretty big thing for them, and these developers, they've been able to do whatever they wanted to. So, I mean,
that impact assessment, that will be on a state government level. Is that right? And then the community benefit agreement with the local council, they have to do that with the council, and then on top of that, community consultation, some kind of like formal setting, I'm assumed. So there's 3 steps there that are new to what would have been in place before.
So yes, the steps are obviously coming to where they might assess where they'd like to put these projects, but then going to the communities and asking them what their feedback is first, obviously to council. And then obviously moving forward, reaching some sort of an agreement if it is the right place, and then going to the state government and moving forward from there to work out getting the project up, and is it the right place? Well, that's pretty important too, because there's a lot of projects up in and around the electorate of Morani.
That leads into my next question, Glen. Is this just for new solar and wind projects, or existing projects have to do this as well?
That's a good question, and it's for new projects.
It covers new wind and solar projects. Is there any scope for battery energy storage systems?
Look, well, the battery storage too, you've got to remember, when it comes to wind and solar projects, they rely on battery as well. And this is something that they don't release enough. These developers they talk about the right place because of the wind, and they like to put solar on some of the best agricultural lands for grazing, either grazing for beef cattle or for growing crops. Solar like good, easy going for their projects, and wind. When it comes to wind, it's all about transmission lines, and it's all about where the infrastructure is. It makes it easier for them. But the thing they don't release enough is the battery storage. And when you have likes of big storage batteries and around where people live, might make it easier for the developers, but it really puts burden on the people that live there, and it puts burden on the people that have chose to live in these areas. It's called lifestyle blocks.
So the batteries, are they included, or will they be in the future?
Batteries are not involved yet, but batteries are something that we are certainly looking at, because I think, like I just said, large-scale industrial zones is one thing. But when you start wanting to put it in and around where people live,
when this bill was being debated, looking at the notes there, Ms McMillan, the Labor member for Mansfield, she spoke against it, saying, it's this complex new layer of process that's imposed at the front end of the projects. It brings a lot of uncertainty to the renewable sector. Does the bill act as a deterrent for any renewable investment in Queensland?
Look, honestly, there's one thing I've learnt down here in Parliament is the people that are for renewables, their life is around walking in shadows in rooms where they can't even open the windows. It's called air conditioning. They have no idea where we live, how important agriculture is to the state of Queensland, how important what we have, it's called regional Queensland, where the people do live, have the opportunity to live. And the member for Mansfield, at the end of the day, and I've witnessed it with my own eyes, those guys don't understand how mentally, how disturbing to an interruption to people's lives renewables is. Yeah, it's all about reality, and it's all about pleasing everybody, not just some.
If these projects come forward and they have community support for an appropriate location, they follow this impact assessment, have these agreements in place with the council, would you be for these projects if they followed those guidelines? Or, is it a kind of blanket thing that you don't want to see them, in Morani at all?
I think there's places for this stuff, but it's certainly not in and around where people can live, and it's certainly not for where people have the opportunity to live. It's a big country, or big state, Queensland, and there's a lot of places where this stuff could go, and it doesn't annoy anyone.
That is member for Morani there, Glen Kelly, speaking with Katrina Bevan about this new legislation changing the requirements for new solar and wind projects in Queensland.